The old house loomed, a silhouette against the dying light. Mahyar, keys heavy in hand, hesitated. A chill wind whispered through the eaves, carrying the scent of damp earth and something else, something ancient. He pushed the door open, the rusty hinges groaning in protest. Dust motes danced in the single shaft of light from the doorway. The air was heavy, stagnant, thick with the silence of decades. He stepped inside, the floorboards groaning beneath his weight. Each step felt like an intrusion, a violation of some unspoken pact. He wandered through darkened rooms, each one echoing with emptiness. Furniture draped in white sheets, shrouded like mourners in some perpetual vigil. And then he saw it. At the end of a long, dark hallway, a mirror hung upon the wall. Its silvered surface was tarnished, clouded with age and neglect. Mahyar approached slowly, drawn by an inexplicable pull. As he drew closer, he could have sworn he saw a flicker of movement in the mirror's depths. A fleeting shadow, gone as quickly as it appeared. He dismissed it as a trick of the fading light. But a shiver ran down his spine, a primal warning that whispered of danger. The first night in the house was plagued by unsettling dreams, whispers on the edge of hearing, cold drafts from nowhere. Mahyar tossed and turned, the oppressive atmosphere seeping into his subconscious. He woke with a start, his heart pounding. A sliver of moonlight sliced through the heavy curtains. His gaze fell upon the mirror across the room. He couldn't explain it, but something felt different, as though the mirror itself was watching him. He rose from the bed, drawn to it once more. The silvered surface was still clouded, but as he peered into its depths, he noticed something peculiar. A hairline crack, almost invisible to the naked eye, marred the mirror's surface. It hadn't been there before. Mahyar reached out, his fingers tracing the delicate fracture. As he did so, he felt a sudden jolt of static electricity, a sharp, stinging sensation that caused him to recoil his hand. The air crackled around him, and for a brief moment he could have sworn he saw a pair of eyes staring back at him from the other side of the glass. Eyes filled with a cold, malevolent intelligence. Days turned into nights, each one more unsettling than the last. The strange occurrences continued, escalating in their intensity. Objects moved inexplicably. Whispers seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. And the mirror was changing. The crack had spread, spiderwebbing across its surface like a shattered pane of glass. And the reflection, it was no longer a perfect duplicate. At first the differences were subtle, a flicker of movement where there should be none. A slight delay in his reflection's response. But gradually they became more pronounced. One evening, as Mahyar stood before the mirror, he noticed his reflection mimicking his movements, but with a sinister twist. A sardonic smile played upon its lips. Its eyes, once warm and familiar, now burned with a cold, predatory light. He recoiled in horror, stumbling backward, but the reflection remained, its grin widening, as if mocking his fear. Panic welled up inside him, a suffocating dread that he couldn't shake off. He avoided the mirror, but it was no use. He could feel its presence everywhere he went, a constant, watchful gaze following his every move. He was trapped, ensnared in a web of his own making. Sleep offered no escape. His dreams were haunted by the mirror, by the creature that resided within its depths. It whispered to him in the darkness, its voice a sibilant hiss that promised power and knowledge in exchange for something he couldn't quite grasp. He tried to resist, to block out the insidious whispers that wormed their way into his mind. But the mirror's hold on him was too strong. It was as if it was slowly poisoning him, corrupting his thoughts, his very essence. One night, He woke to find himself standing before the mirror. He hadn't remembered getting out of bed, hadn't felt his feet touch the cold floor. It was as if he had been drawn there, compelled by an invisible force. His reflection stood opposite him, its features now almost completely alien. Gone was the familiarity, the warmth of recognition. In its place was something cold, calculating, and utterly evil, and it was speaking to him, its voice a low, guttural growl that seemed to emanate from the very depths of his soul. "We are one!" the reflection hissed, its voice a chilling echo of his own. "Two sides of the same coin. Join me, and together we will be complete." Mahia tried to resist, to pull away from the mirror's hypnotic pull, but it was like trying to fight against a riptide. The more he struggled, the stronger the pull became. He could feel himself being drawn closer, inexorably pulled towards his doom. The reflection reached out, its hand passing through the cracked surface of the mirror as if it were water, its fingers, icy cold and impossibly strong, wrapped around his wrist. He cried out, a desperate plea for help that echoed unheard in the silence of the house. "There's no escape," the reflection whispered, its voice a seductive purr. "We are bound together, you and I. Embrace your destiny." Despair washed over Mahia, a suffocating wave that threatened to drown him. He closed his eyes, surrendering to the inevitable. He could feel the cold, smooth surface of the mirror against his skin, and then darkness swallowed him whole. He was trapped, suspended in a realm of cold, grey mist, where shadows danced and whispered. The air was thick with the stench of decay, the taste of ashes on his tongue. He could see his reflection in the distance, its back turned towards him. "Let me go," Mahia cried out, his voice echoing emptily through the void. But the reflection didn't turn, it just continued to stare into the swirling mist, its body swaying slightly as if to some unheard melody. He lunged towards it, his hands outstretched, but as he drew close, he realized with a sickening lurch that he was no closer than before. The distance between them remained constant, an unbreachable chasm. Panic welled up inside him, a primal scream trapped within his chest. He was a prisoner in his own reflection, condemned to wander this desolate landscape for all eternity. The morning sun, pale and watery, slanted through the dusty windows. The house was silent, the air thick with an unsettling stillness. Dust motes danced in the golden light, undisturbed by any breeze. The only sound was the faint ticking of a grandfather clock in the hall, marking the passage of time. In the bedroom, the mirror hung upon the wall, its surface now eerily clear. The cracks were gone, vanished without a trace. And within its depths, a single figure stood trapped. Mahia stared out from the other side, his eyes wide with terror, his face contorted in a silent scream. He was a prisoner in his own reflection, forever bound to the cursed mirror. The house was once again silent, but a palpable sense of dread permeated the air, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lay hidden beneath its surface.